Hey, so I know that I said that I wasn't planning on making videos for a while in regards to Pokemon, basically for the reasons I brought up in the last video. I did want to do a quick check-in because a few things have developed, and what can I say? I missed doing this as thrown together as these videos are, and probably the three viewers I get per video. Anyway, first things first. So today's episode aired with Koharu and Eevee. Long story short, it was boring. I watched it once and I was like, all right, we didn't get the evolution that should have happened here. I dare say was supposed to happen here. Fine. There are episodes where it's dialogue heavy, and it's almost like a whole different episode when you have the dialogue. So I went ahead and I watched it a second time, subtitled, and it didn't make it any better. So here's the issue here. So the episode that aired was supposed to be the climax of this whole journey where Koharu is trying to help Eevee figure out what she wants to evolve into. Here's the thing. Pokemon came out as a franchise in 1995. I'm not going to date things back to when the anime started because most people who watched Pokemon, I was one of the rarities who had seen the show before playing the games, but especially in Japan though, we instead of in America it being almost concurrent, the anime came out a few years after the games. Mostly everyone who watched the original Kanto anime had played the games. So, if we went back in time and it was 1995, and let's change a few things. Instead of just the original three evolutions to Eevee, we have all of the current evolutions. If that had been the thing, and people loved Pokemon, and then going into Kanto, you had Chloe or a character like Chloe with an Eevee, and they introduced all the evolutions that way. Even if Eevee decided, no, I'm good, I'll stay the way I am, that would have been fine. The thing is, since then, all the evolutions have been introduced. Various people have owned many Eevees now. Not to mention the Unova champion, was an Eevee trainer. We had the original Kanto episode where there's the Eevee that decides doesn't want to evolve into any of the Eevees being offered. In Johto, we had two episodes about the Evolution sisters that are in the Gold, Silver, Crystal games. And faithfully, each generation we've been getting new evolutions. And going back to May, with the exception of Dawn and then Iris too, but keep in mind this is a key thing. That's the same generation when you had the Evolution champion. Every traveling companion of Ash's, who is the main girl, and then Alola, the equivalent would be Lana and her Eevee, has had an Eevee and usually it evolves, not always. It's a good plot device for introducing a new evolution. So, with that track record, this being the same show that introduced Togepi 2 years before the new games came out, that introduced Donphan and Snubble, still about a little over a year before the new games came out. It's a show that has not been afraid to introduce things before the games that have the Pokemon introduced um, comes out. And that's what's made one of the things that's made the anime something that people have loved to watch over the years. So all of that buildup is for me to say that's what we should have gotten here. Now I get it. A lot of the kids, which is the target audience of the show primarily, I do feel like older audiences get ignored too much. I mean, the fact is, ever since Pokemon came out, it's been something that has appeal. It's not like Barney the Dinosaur, Arthur. You're not going to find many people in their 20s or 30s, particularly college kids, loving Pokemon. It's also a generational thing. There are more college kids who like Pokemon than they were 20, 25 years ago. But the fact remains that many of the people who grew up with this still enjoy it, and we're the ones with the disposable income. You might have a kid asking their parents, hey, can you buy me these cards or these video games? I'll be really good. But the fact is, we are the ones with disposable income. So I think we're ignored a lot. Now, with that said, this is a show where we are in a current generation. the advertisement for the current series. I've watched a lot of Pokemon recently in the original TV Tokyo streams. So there's a commercial that's been around for a while in Japan. It's with this kid who gets a Pokemon sticker. It's one of the legendary dogs. I think it's the one with the sword from Galar. And his dad has memories of him collecting Pokemon stickers and being excited. He's kind of reminiscing on it. Then he gets a Mew sticker and he's excited. I get what they're going for in Japan, a family thing that crosses generational lines. But the fact remains two things. You might have young kids that this is their first time watching Pokemon, so why not learn about all the Eevees this way? This is a perfectly good storyline. But they're not the only audience. Second of all, kids in Japan, just like in the United States, where I'm from, for example, most people have high speed internet. This is not a thing where you can't. With the 3 years the Journeys has been going on, if you watch just 1, 2 episodes a day, rewatch the entire library of the show, 40 minutes of your time with no commercials, it can be done, especially during summer breaks. So let's not kid ourselves that this is the first time most kids are going to see an Eevee storyline for the first time. So, all in all, that made this entire arc pointless. I get what they were trying to do, but it was pointless. And it's a real letdown. Now, I'm not trying to come down too hard on a little girl and her Eevee. A lot of people in the fandom are. There's even a YouTuber who I follow who makes videos all the time, and they're very positive about the series. Who said recently he might not make a video for this one, which is fine. But I was kind of surprised. He tends to find the good in everything. Um, anyway, the point is, it was a waste of our time. And it's unfortunate because we have Gen 9 coming out. And here's where I was coming from this whole time. I was saying it was very likely that we would get the Gen 9 Eevee, if there's at least one, introduced, because it would have been perfect at this time. Especially with this week, with them dropping all this information on the new games. Now, here's one thing. I'm not going to be naive and hold out hope where it isn't there. But it didn't end in a way suggesting, well, this is it. Eevee will never evolve. Um, Koharu and Eevee's journey with what Eevee can evolve into, what she can learn because she's interested in learning about Pokemon evolution now, actual character development on her part, by the way. Um, the possibilities are endless. So we might see her Eevee evolve at some point. I don't think at this point it's going to happen in this series, um, which opens the door for the next thing. So, due to things you can find that other people have talked about in videos, long story short, I'll cut to the chase with this. This video's been going on kind of long enough. Rika Matsumoto had said that um, there's more than one way, more or less, to become a Pokemon Master. It's not all about winning. So maybe Ash will lose to Leon, maybe even Cynthia, who knows. Secondly, one of the people who does the background music for the anime, he made a statement about the track. One of the tracks he did being about Ash being frustrated and sad because he can't even reach the top. Again, I don't want to be naively optimistic about what is unlikely, but I hope and could be a thing. One thing is, it could be a thing where Rika is talking about. I don't understand how that would work with the mechanics of the Pokemon world, but it might be a thing where, Ash wins, and it's really weird. At least, see, the dub isn't, especially in the 4Kids days, it doesn't necessarily actually reflect anything about what the original translation of the show meant. And I haven't watched the original subtitled version of the beginning of the Pokemon League. I don't know if you can find those on the internet. Anyway, in the original, albeit dub, of the Kanto League back in the day, the narrator said that the person who won that contest would go on to get the title of Pokemon Master. Obviously, that changed by the time we got to the Sinnoh anime, and the roles of the Elite Four for each region and the champion were finally fleshed out. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. The point is, I don't know what exactly a Pokemon Master would be if it's not Ash being the strongest trainer in the world. I mean, what else would he have to master? See them all? I mean, they decide with this anime they don't care about Ash seeing every Pokemon now with Galar, for example. And would it be catching every Pokemon? That's not going to happen with Ash, and we thought it might happen with Go, but it hasn't. So I don't know. That meaning just feels very fluffy and maybe even taken out of context. Doesn't necessarily mean Ash will lose. It's just a very confusing statement. Very daydreamy. Second thing, it could be a situation where Ash is losing to Cynthia and or Leon, or he gets nervous and he feels like he may lose. That's all a possibility too. These are all things that should definitely be kept in mind when we're thinking about these things. But I'm not going to be naive about it. It makes sense when this is a series that Ash has had a very specific goal, defeat Leon, and he's gone on to become a champion of a region. It makes sense he would defeat Leon. It would be boring and redundant for him to be in the next anime and be like, well, I lost. I guess I'm going to train for another 3 years in real life time to defeat Leon, or just forget about it and move on to something else. That's not like Ash. The closest thing would be not going back to every league he didn't win, but again, it's kind of like why didn't he do the gym challenge in Gallards? It would be redundant. Ash has no business losing to trainers who aren't at his peer level. And no, he better not lose to any regional starters in Gen 9 if he's going to be in the Gen 9 anime. So, getting to the point though, with some of the game mechanics introduced with the new games, there are three paths you can take, one of them being the gym challenge, and one being the other. Hey, there's Ash and there's Go and there's Chloe. Chloe wants to learn about Pokemon evolution. Go, I guess, what's going to happen after Project Mew? They sacked the whole idea of him catching every Pokemon to work up to Mew, but in theory, that would be something for Go. And then Ash would go for the gym battles. So when people suggest that, I'm thinking, oh, it doesn't really make sense. They're going to rehash these three characters. Plus, a lot of people hate Go, and not many people like Chloe. And I agree, as someone who likes Ash, he needs to be retired after this show, after this specific generation. So finally, what am I getting at? So what I'm getting at here is this. Um, although it, although I still think it's likely, and it makes sense that Ash will defeat Leon. If he doesn't, I guess Ash should be in the next Gen 9 anime. And we're assuming there will be a Gen 9 anime, which is likely. Merchandising, blah, blah, blah. I think it would be a terrible idea. I think he should be written off with his goal complete. And they could do two things. It's an alternate universe. And no, don't think of Marvel as far as being able to easily cross those dimensions. There's going to be interactions and crossovers. That's been done. Think of it as like whenever a new game comes out, they made those limited series, things like Pokemon Evolutions or Twilight Wings. It's an alternate thing that's a Pokemon universe thing, something like that. Or I don't watch them, but I did love the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, and I'm aware of the fact that in the newer series, Yugi's appeared more than once. Even Autumn has, which is silly in my opinion, and they're still the king of games, but the regional and a generational main character still has their own thing going on. That could happen with Ash. I'd be okay with that. But really put his story to rest. That would be great. Anyway, I wouldn't completely close the door yet on Eevee's evolution with Chloe. Disappointed with how they wasted our time with this. And in regards to what's next, I mean, we're finally getting back to the tournament, and unless there's an interruption between the semifinals and the finals, that might be where Project Mew goes in. Because it'd be weird for Ash to win the championship of his life and then be like, oh, and now we're going to Project Mew. It's like someone who likes Mew and actually likes Go, it wouldn't be that exciting. But in general, I think we're coming to the final part of this story. It should be Ash's last. I don't know if it will be for sure. Which brings me to the third thing that has been on my mind um, since then. So finally, last thing, I already talked about the schedules. There's one good highlight about next week, although it does look like a rehash. I was hoping they might use the time to do maybe 4 minutes of in real time stuff going on. Maybe make this the episode where Ash's friends filter in, because I really am convinced and think all of his friends should be there in the stands in his semifinals or at least the finals. And why waste time in an actual episode that's been marked off for a battle? If that didn't happen, though, I was hoping they would do something like what they said they'll do in the preview, which is talk more about the background of the four remaining competitors. So if it's not literally just a rehash and they actually talk about in-depth stuff that you're not going to hear about outside that special, you know, these little nuances about Diantha or Leon or Cynthia. We already know everything about Ash, but maybe they'll tell us more. That makes next week's episode not something to completely skip and not necessarily completely boring. It could be interesting. But I hate to say it, don't get too excited about things until semifinals one starts later this month. And hey, we are closer to it than we were before. Anyway, that's it, guys. Have a good one.